Okay, our project today is to organize the hardware bins here. You can see we've been doing that. Um, these bins are Harbor Freight bins, and I think they're like $75 or $79 on sale from Harbor Freight. I got two of them, and they're actually pretty good bins. They've got different sizes of trays, actual bins. This is a bin hangers, and then the bins themselves, they've got different sizes of bins. They've got the bigger bins down here, put big shit in, and other bins to put smaller stuff in. And say they were pretty good. They're fairly sturdy. You know, you can't put a lot of pressure on them or anything. They shake around a little bit, so tacking to the wall might be good, but they're freestanding and they're holding up pretty good. These bins up here, a little bit different. They were cheaper. Harbor Freight again, and they're not worth a shit. The hanger for it is pretty flimsy, and the little trays for it they look like they would be pretty nice, but they're pretty flimsy. So that one, I don't recommend that one. It fit on a bench, but these trays are. And then there's one of the problems with them is they're nice big trays, but they're real thin plastic. It's brittle, and they're see, they fit up in here in this bin and hold in. It's a fairly nice design, but the build of it is crappy. And then they're nice big bins, but they don't have any separators for the bins, any way of making the bins other than just one big bin. And these here, like I said, they're nicer bins, nicer than the trays are nicer. But again, I couldn't find any separators for the trays, and so for things like this with nuts in them, where they don't have a whole tray full of them, I want different sizes in there. I made these little dividers up, and that's what we're doing here, is making these dividers, dividing these trays up for the small nuts and bolts. So we've got different styles and different bins, and then different sizes, and I built the dividers for them. Now, one of the problems I had is there's two different, we bought those at the same time from the same Harbor Freight store, but there's two different styles of bins. One tray has these bins here with the straight dividers in them, and they're set up with these little deals on the bottom that slide in there, so you can kind of stack these trays in here like this, and they stack up. Don't take up much room that way. They come apart, or you can stack them together, stack them on top of each other like that. These bins have a little different type of tray in them. You can see they're tapered. They slide down into each other like that, but they'll also lock these little pins down here on the bottom, lock into a little receptacle on it, so they can stack up like that. Well, what I've been doing with these to make them more useful for me, for multiple parts, and these small parts, is making a little divider that goes in here like that, and then locks in, and I can make a divider for the tray. See, we got them. There we go. Here's one. You can see it's a piece of steel, and I just cut it. This one is kind of a triangular shape, or trapezoidal shape, I guess it is, and it fits down in the tray. The tray is not straight down. It fits down in there, and then they just bend a little lip edge on the top of it, a lip on the top of it that fits right over those those little risers in the tray. And now these are just kind of sitting in there on these trays, these bin, and see that bin got a little lip on the back of it there, and it just hangs on that metal brace on the back there. Now these I've got more dividers in here for these nuts, and I just took these and I put a little bit of hot glue along on the top of these ridges in here, and set this metal divider down in the hot glue, and then just put a little bit on the top of it to hold them in, and that works for those. These are a little bit different. This is for washers, and these, especially these small washers, will slide right underneath this. Any kind of little gap, if these bounce up and down or anything, these will slide right through there. So what I've done is I've taken the hot glue gun and just run a fillet right along the edges between the metal of these divider and the tray itself, and filled in the gaps there so that these washers will not be able to slide from one bin to the next. Now, there's not really a problem with these if I leave these washers in the bags, but eventually, and I've got a lot of washers that are not in the bags and stuff, so I'm going to have to get those put in there. But so that's today's project, is to make these dividers so that I can get all of this mess cleaned up and organized a little better. And we've got lots of different washers. We've got these internal lock washers, got regular washers. See, these are stainless steel washers, and so we're getting them all organized, get all this. So we make more dividers, and this is what I've done. Is I made a template. This is out of a thin piece of wood that was waste stock off my piece of spruce, and that's how thin my bandsaw mill would cut. It's just a little piece of waste off of it, the bandsaw mill, but that's a piece of spruce, and then I cut it out. This one I screwed up on it, and I got it cut off too much, so that's waste. Use the pliers, use a regular pair of scissors. These are heavy fabric scissors. I just knock the points, take the points off of these, round them off so you don't get stuck on them. And I'm using this shear for the fine work, to cut the pieces out with. I'm out of metal right now. What I'm using for metal here is I'm breaking down. I've been saving up old steel cans that solvent, paint thinner, things like that come in, and I cut those up and use that. So I'm out of it now, so I've got to find a can and cut it up. This is our metal supply. It's just a empty lacquer thinner can. And what I do here is I take just a regular box knife, utility knife, and just cut the can open with it. Now the can's pretty solid right along these edges here. There's a ridge, and so it's the problem with cutting these is it gets to be flexible and you can't get a knife in there real well. This is the seam where the can was welded, and so I'll cut. Now I've made my first cut along this bottom, this seam. The second cut will be right here where this weld is, and you got to be careful of that. And what I'll do is I turn it around this way. So I make this cut lengthways down the can before I get too far here, while I still have enough rigidity in the can to be able to safely hold the knife in and make the cut. I'll make this cut right along the welded seam in the can. Now this next cut will be on the top. Turn the can over. There's the top cut off of it. And there's the bottom cut off of it. Okay, there's the can. Now you want to be careful of these cut edges, because this cut edges on these tin can, once it's they can cut you just as much as a knife can. Well, I'll just straighten this out. Take the bends out of it. Now we'll take it over to the combination shear and trim it up. Well, first what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my template and I'm going to mark this. I get cut the edges off here a little ways there, but I'm going to mark this template. Put this template on here and mark my widths of my cuts. Make them plenty oversized so they got plenty of room for trimming it up to the right size. Okay, now we'll take it over to the shear, combination shear. My first cut is along this small edge, and I can use the printing on the can as a guide here to kind of get it square. If I just put it so the letters are right underneath the blade of the cut, then that'll make a square cut. That'll make the first cut there. Do the same thing here. Run it right along the there's a line on this lettering right here that if I line that up with that blade, that'll make a nice square cut there. I'll turn this and cut the seam off. Trim up the rough edge on this side. marks on here where I'm okay, that gives me pieces now that I can use to cut. That gives me 5 pieces now that you can use to cut separators out of, and each one of these I can make 2 pieces out of. Now set most of these aside. I'll take my first piece, get a little pencil here, I'm going to sharpen it up. I got a nice sharp point on it. I'll take my template that I made and put it on this piece, and put the top edge of the template right up against the top edge of that metal, and I'll just draw around the template with the pencil. This edge is going to be a little bit wider than what it needs to be, so we'll have to cut that off a little bit, but that's pretty darn close. I got a nice mark with that template. Then I'll turn the template over and put it on this other edge. Put it right up against the top of this edge. A little sliver of metal right there. I have to be careful for that. And I'll just draw this line. Okay, now there's 2 pieces ready to be cut out. Now I'll come over to this shear, and I'm going to cut these 2 pieces out. I'll lay that line right underneath the shear line and line it up on the... Just cut it. That one. Now that other little extra there I can just cut off with the scissors, and there's a little hanger here you ought to be real careful with. It's sharp. I'll cut that off with the scissors. I'll take the box that I'm going to use and wipe it out real good. Okay, now I'll put this divider in there, get it set where I want it in the box. And I'll mark a line on the top of these I guess they're probably stiffeners or whatever, anyway, these sides of the box here. I'll just make a mark right there on that. See the mark? And then I have this hand seamer. I take and put it, and I just leave just a little bit, 30-second or so of clearance there between that line and where the edge of the seamer goes, and I'll bend a 90-degree bend on that. Put that back in here to check it out, and it works good. Before I go too far, I forgot to take the scissors and just cut those corners off. And that one there was a little bit wide. And this one's okay. I'm going to just round that corner off just to take the point off of it. I'll put that back in there and take the pencil, get it right where I want it. Take the pencil and mark right where the top of this divider goes on both sides. I'll put my seamer, same thing, just to give me a little bit of 30-second or so for the bend. Put it right on there and then make that bend, and that divider is finished. Now I'll just make enough for what have I got? I've got 3 more of them to do for this particular bin. Actually, I'll just do 2 more of them for this bin, and then I'll take the hot glue gun and put a little bit of glue right here and here, and set this down on here, get it right in the right position, and then run a fillet with hot glue on the top or in the bottom and on the sides of this so that any washers can't come through that. And I have this labeler, and I'll make labels for it, so each of the bins will be labeled for the correct part. Got this all set up now with the dividers made. I just take and clean this divider up with some lacquer thinner, get all the grease and dirt and stuff off of it, and put those over here. I'll wipe that all nice and clean on the front, because that's where the glue is going to go for this. The label's going to go. Now I took the old label off from this bin. I'll just clean that up. Just wipe these bins out a little bit. They're a little bit dirty. Now I'm lucky enough to have this label maker. Works pretty nice, and so I'm going to make the label for this. And what I want, these bins are going to be for washers, and there's thin washers and regular sized washers, and so I'll have ones for a number 5 bolt, 5/32 bolt, and a number 6 bolt, the washers for that size. And so there'll be 4 bins in here. The first label is going to go on the front of this bin, and that one will be N960, and it's a stainless, so it's a C 516L. So it's the first one will be a thin washer, and then I can adjust my size here, and that's the right size that I want, and I'll hit print, and here comes the label. Now I've got wide labels in here, so I'll take this label, I'll take my scissors and trim it down. So these labels then will be for the bin that's behind it, behind the label. The first label will go right here on the bin. Now the next bin will be, it will go like this. So this would be the next bin, which would be just 5/16s, and then 6/16s, L's, and 6/16s. So because of the way I can get into that, we'll go with the back one first, and that way that'll give me, I'm going to plug my hot glue gun in here, and I'll make that label. Well, I can just make the 5/16. I can go ahead and make the label on that. And I'm going to make it larger size. Now, this first one, heat gun's heating up there. I'll put hot glue there on the top. And get this thing set down. And then take my glue gun and run right down in here, especially along the bottom. And just make a fillet right along the bottom, so the washers, if they can't escape on me. We don't want any. Want to segregate these washers. We don't want them mixing. Never know what happens when you get them mixed. So there's the first one. And there's the second one. Need a new glue stick. Okay. Plug the glue gun so it doesn't sit there and cook an old glue out of it. Alright, I got lots of nice spider webs here of plastic. Alright, now we've got a bin set up there for, these happen to be for these are 5/16 L's in here. Leave them in that. And these are mixed in here, so I'll have to sort those out. The loose ones. There's a thin one, a thin one, and a thick one. There's a thin one, two thick ones, a thin one, a thick one. So there's a bin divider done, all labeled and set nice. Put it away, do some more.